Morning.
Good morning. So, yeah, Sherry was kind of saying, yeah, there's going to be news coming out, but she said that's for tomorrow morning too.
Yes. Um, so, um, us as a collective body of inmates have decided to to take action. Now, with that being said,
Yeah.
I'd like to say that COVID-19 is considered by many, I think, as the virus of truth.
Yeah.
It has revealed the minds and agenda of many organizations of people. It has revealed the truth of people, and with that being said, I think the truth of it is that the Minister of Corrections and Policing doesn't care about us.
No.
They don't care what happens to us.
No.
So,
It's true. It's been laid bare. Very, very bare. Yeah.
now, I speak on behalf of a generation of young, lost Aboriginal warriors living in a modern-day institution of colonial suppression, who have unfairly and unjustly labeled us criminals and thieves over a 150-year campaign to diminish our identities as protectors of our people. Within this architecture of oppression exists a vibrant community of strong, intelligent, creative, generous brothers who eat together, wrestle, and play together, and protect each other from a system that has targeted and exploited us by an agenda of dominant mainstream society.
Yeah.
A predominant voter base that has over 150 years cultivated prejudice values to elect a biased government that has reduced us to surviving on watered-down peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah.
It is true we have been targeted as Aboriginal men by a racist system. But despite this modern-day epidemic of over-incarceration, our resilient community of modern Aboriginal warriors has survived by the will and creative ambition to prevail from this death of many an enemy of poverty, addiction, racism, and incarceration, to find community and belonging and acceptance in this dominant mainstream model of humanity, if not by our own standards. For we are an oppressed people. We are inmates not only of institutions of incarceration, but every other institution that has dominated us for years. We are inmates of poverty, high suicide rates, disease, and over-incarceration and representation in the justice system. The current events surrounding the outbreak in provincial prisons is an example of the relationship and failures to protect a vulnerable people within their care. It is an example of a 150-year-old tradition of ignoring the needs of a vulnerable people within their power to protect and mustn't go unrecognized. This cycle of systemic oppression must be broken and must be recognized for what it is, a modern-day act of genocide meant to eradicate our people. We humbly ask the intelligent, educated minds that are more suitable and equipped in logic and law to employ and unite in conversations and inquiry and defense into the epidemic of incarceration, the overuse of remand, the overrepresentation of Aboriginals, and the prevalent dominating structures used to oppress a vulnerable demographic that has tortured our dignity and lives as a vulnerable people. So on behalf of the many inmates and the staff whom were infected by the Ministry of Corrections' dismissive and negligent policies that exacerbated an outbreak, which was preventable through a procedure to reduce harm, we call on the Minister of Corrections and Policing to apologize to the many inmates whom were vulnerable and were infected from COVID-19, whom were under the protection and care of this correctional system that has failed them over and over. We call on the Minister of Corrections and Policing to apologize to the 31 staff who were infected by COVID-19 and exposed to a dangerous environment exacerbated by negligent policies that created the environment. And we call on the Minister of Corrections and Policing, who failed to protect inmates, staff, and in turn the public whom were infected, to resign as Minister of Corrections and Policing.
Yes. Well, I'll be taking that one to the streets. I would like to see that. Yeah.
It's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely dangerous. And, but I see like the battle is like what people are up against is, like you say, 150 years of indoctrination of hatred.
For sure. I mean, Saskatchewan is filled with Aboriginals.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to create divisions. It affects everyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, just knowing that these provincial institutions are filled with vulnerable Aboriginal people is just an example. You know, failing to protect them is just an example of, you know, the 150-year-old tradition of the government in ignoring the you know, their obligations to protect us and letting us get sick.
Yeah.
So we can't let this go unrecognized. We cannot.
No.
And if people out there are listening, in these correctionals, on the streets, I mean, now is the time to start unifying and making those conversations.
Now
it's starting to input. Now is the time to start implementing and backing up those missing and murdered recommendations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we're hearing of things, we're hearing stories coming from Pine Grove girls, and these are our sisters.
Yeah.
That, like, we're making third-party calls over to them through conference calling, and we're not hearing very good things coming from them. They're being suppressed. We're not hearing nothing in the media about them ever.
No. And I was saying, like, Sherry, you know, Pine Grove, are they reaching out? Like, we understand that there's, you know, community between the institutions, and it just seems like it's the hardest place to get to. It seems like it's the most locked down. It seems like, you know. Yeah.
For sure. A lot of those themes in the recommendations that I've been studying them. I have them, and like I a lot of them, you know, they emphasize prison reform. You know, Christine Pell, if I'm not mistaken, has been minister for quite a long time, dating back to Brad Wall's government.
Yeah.
Now, she has still holding strong to the old policies of Brad Wall, and Brad Wall has, you got to understand, people have to understand this and understand the context of what he created, the damage he created to Aboriginal people. And that's prison reform, knowing that the correctionals have been predominantly overcrowded with Aboriginal people for years.
Yeah.
And he introduced prison reform that eradicated the rights of us, that dominated us,
Yeah.
that reduced us to eating watered down peanut butter and jam sandwiches and fighting over them, overpriced canteen,
Yeah.
and just a number of things like privatizing companies as a cost-effective way to feed us,
Yeah.
make money off us. And I think it's important to know that our demographic here is just keeping the correctionals full.
Yeah.
Is just meeting their quota to qualify to attract more federal funding. It's all about federal funding, attracting federal funding, job security. By keeping the correctionals full with vulnerable Aboriginal people, well, just inmates in general, with little to no skills with which to form some kind of defense against dominant professionalism,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No.
It's just uneducated people that don't see the whole picture, you know? It's just keeping their correctional officers working and just attracting federal funding. So we're just job security, and I don't give a shit. I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Because it's the truth.
It's the truth. You know, Corey, like, it reminds me of, like, reading, you know, because I study, like, a lot of history of Saskatchewan and stuff. And it's, like, so much per head. You get so much per head when you bring them in, you know? Then that's what the prisons, that's what the jails are like here. You get so much federal money per head. You get more, you know? Like, I think it really needs to be seen that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think now, like, is the time. You know, we have a chance, and if you're listening out there, then now is the chance, you know, to rise and be heard. I mean,
I agree with you so much.
We've got to have these conversations. We have to have these conversations because they have to start listening to the people that are suffering in the correctional centers.
Yeah.
In the belly of the beast, they have to listen to the people that have come from the bottom. It can't be about, you can't just listen to edited versions coming from, you know, leaders that think they know. You have to listen to the people that have lived on, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
That have survived on ketchup sandwiches, that know what it is to feel hungry.
Yeah.
You know, that know what it feels like to be objects of speculation in those food lines, in those soup kitchens, on the street, suffering, discriminated, marginalized from a mainstream society. You know, you got to listen to those people, and the correctionals are full of them.
And that's the thing, like, where I was thinking about it just this morning. It's like, change doesn't happen from the top down. Change happens from the bottom up. And it's like, we have to organize as good as them. We got to get, you know, we got to, like, the bottom, things don't change. Things only change when the grassroots gets to all together and starts hollering and hooting about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, people have to understand that these people in the correctionals, they're not just, you know, they label us criminals. They labeled us thieves. They labeled us over a 150-year campaign.
Yeah.
To diminish our identities. You know, it's a spotlight on our people, and it's an act of suppression.
Yeah.
And it needs to be recognized. We're not just criminals. You know, we're caught in cycles of recidivism, of destruction, the cycles that are created by a mainstream society.
Yeah.
People in these correctionals they're not criminals. They're desperate people that have taken action in their own ways as a way to cope with the poverty that's before them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we're being criminalized by labeling, by a mainstream society, and people need to understand that.
Yeah.
These are we're grandpas, we're brothers, we're your brothers, we're your sisters, you know, we're your sons, we're your daughters. Yeah. You know, we're old descendants. We're descendants of old Aboriginal warriors dating back to way before that. We used to protect our people. Mm-hmm. We used to protect the people, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we are. So with that being said, I think it's important to know that we're us in the correctional centers. We've had enough.
Yeah.
And it's time to show that we're humans. It's time to take our humanity back.
Yes.
You know, to be included in this model of humanity. Because like these correctionals exist with vibrant brothers, that a community of brothers, you know, that are artistic, that are generous. We help each other, you know. Yeah. We will give everything we have to each other, you know.
Oh yeah.
Not just what we can afford. We don't just give what we can afford. We give everything we have to each other.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you so much, and I feel like you're really hitting on something, because it's really a cultural. It's really like a.
You have 1 minute remaining for this call.
Yeah, like you say, like a demonization, and you know, people have to get that out of their mind. They are brainwashed by mainstream media, by corporate media.
They need to change their perception.
Yeah.
So, anyways, with that being said, thank you.
Well, thank you
for hearing me out, and you will hear from me again.
Yes, and you guys you to take care of me and Sherry and a few other folks. We'll be cooking up some stuff too, as we're sick of it too. Sick of it.
Thank you.